everyone, my name is Mia Fernandez, and welcome back to Entertainment Unscripted, a series where we sit down with individuals in the media and entertainment industry to discuss their work and the field overall. You might know today's guest from her work on Andy Mack, Shrinking, Murderville, among many other endeavors in the industry. Please welcome Lilan Bowden. Lilan, thank you so much for being here today.
Hi.
It's such a pleasure. Hi. Okay, this has been a long time coming, so let's just get right into it.
Great.
So one of my favorite things about this industry is that there's no one way to get into it. And so I like to start by asking my guests, what led you to the media and entertainment industry?
So I knew I always wanted to act, and I think when you just have a big drive to do something, you'll find your way one way or another. So my path was, I knew I wanted to be close to Los Angeles. I chose a college that was as close as I could get at the time. I went to UC Irvine.
Okay.
Yeah, and right after I graduated, I just landed in the city and just started doing whatever was available to me at the time, and that meant student films, that meant extra work, that meant being a barista, you know.
Yeah.
And getting to know people who were on the same path that I was. Yeah.
Yeah, networking a little bit.
Yeah. I hate to think about it as networking because I don't think I'm a very good networker. But I am good at making friends.
Okay.
And I love when chatting with people about how to get into the industry too, being like, oh, if you think about it as networking, it's like this climbing, I don't know, it that's not something I can wrap my head around. Mm-hmm. But if you go into it the idea of you want to make friends, you want to make connections, you want to build community, then I feel like that's not only an easier path, but it's a more genuine way to approach it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more, it feels like a little bit less pressure, I feel. You're right, networking is a big word.
It's a big word.
Yeah, it's talked about a lot. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So what did you study at UCI?
I studied drama.
Okay.
Yeah, I went in as undecided because just listening to this colloquial advice of it's not realistic to have a major in theater. And so I was like, okay, I'll just choose when I get there. As soon as I landed at UCI and went to my friend's orientation who was pursuing drama, I was like, I don't want to spend my hours doing anything else. You know? So I switched immediately to a drama major, and I don't regret my time. But I think you could have graduated in anything. You know, I could have been so happy being a linguistics major, or I wouldn't have been happy as a math major, but it would have been interesting. Yeah,
that one's tough. And you also spent some time with the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater is an improv comedy focused school.
Okay.
And theater and place where people perform. But you can also see stand-up comedy there. You can see sketch comedy there, musical theater comedy. And I attribute a lot of my community to starting at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater first, because what it offered me when I signed up for classes is, like I said, just a bunch of people who were on the same journey, who knew as little and as much as I did. Yeah. And I'm still really close with a lot of the people that were around when I started. Mm-hmm. I married somebody that I met through Citizens Brigade Theater. Yeah, and a lot of us continue to work in entertainment. So I really think that finding that was such a boon in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's so special. Not only did you not network, but make friends, but you grew up with them too through the industry. I think that's really special. How important do you think it is to study acting or go to some type of school for acting or something in entertainment to be successful?
I think it's regardless of how one studies, whether it's like, oh, I got a degree, or I just took classes in LA, or I had like a little group of my own. Mm-hmm. I think it's super important. Because one, it keeps you humble, two, it makes you better, and three, you get to form real relationships. Yeah. So I really, even though the work itself, when you get cast in a show, perhaps, and when you go to set, you're alone. Yeah. But But everything outside of that, I think no person is an island. You know, you cannot do it alone. And I think I've seen people who have tried to do it alone. It's like, hey, I have a craft. I want to keep it very pristine. I want to keep it very protected. But in so, I think that they denied themselves the advantage of growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a community. And of course, with the more connections you have, the more perspectives you have, more ideas come up.
Yes.
And I'm sure that contributes to a lot in entertainment, really.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you can't pursue this career without an idea that you are going to grow.
Yeah.
You know, I felt like when I finished my formal education at UC Irvine and went to LA, that was so valuable for the next step, but it is starting over. It's just kind of like you just reach the next step to start over. You just kind of have to see it like that, you know? So I came in with a certain amount of skills. I came in with you know, the friends I had made in college, and that actually helped me get going. I moved out with a friend from college, you know, and having like a support person was huge in getting started because it is like a very daunting industry. But I came ready to learn. I came ready to grow, and I came not with the idea that I wasn't gonna be on TV right away. And I think that perspective really served me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you see all these celebrities online, you're like, oh, it just feels like that's where they've been their whole life. But the truth is, like, nobody starts at the top.
Oh my gosh, no! Unless you're somebody's kid.
Yeah.
You know?
And
and that's fine. And you know, you have your own challenges. You know, I think that that life has a lot of other kinds of obstacles, you know.
Yeah.
But for people who don't have any connections, who are like, hey, I have just the drive to want to entertain, to perform, to tell stories. It's all about being like, what can I learn?
Yeah. Sometimes that's all you need is the drive, the motivation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for an actor starting out, how do you get those first auditions? Like, is that something, if you can speak on your experience like that, you did on your own, or do you feel like, do you need an agent to do that?
Oh, I'm a big believer in being a self-starter, like seeing what you can do on your own and what you have access to.
Yeah.
And I think that there's no experience, I mean, there's going to be bad experiences, of course, you know, but everything is going to serve in some way. Either you're going to like audition for something and be like, well, that really wasn't worth my time, you know, after completing a project. And then you'll know that's like, okay, that's not something I want to do again. Or you're going to do something that's going to be like, well, that was really fun. I don't know if I gained anything from it. But then 3 years later, 5 years later, maybe even 10 years later, there's going to be some world where the people that you met, the friend that you made, the director you worked with is going to be like, oh, I remember that person. So I feel like you really can't go wrong by just trying a lot of different things on your own.
Yeah.
And I'm such a big advocate in not trying to get an agent first, because in my experience, an agent is a business person. You know, you're lucky if you can get an agent who like also gets you and like can be your friend. But an agent is looking to make money off of you.
Right.
An agent does not make a career. Like an agent is looking for somebody who's already ready to go.
Yeah.
You know, and that was my experience when I was meeting with agencies. They say, "Hey, we really like you. We think you're cute. We think you're talented. We just don't know what we can do for you. Nobody knows you." It is a catch-22. So I was like, okay, fine. And so just there are a lot of resources, even if they don't feel really glamorous, where it's just like I did don't get stuck in extra work, but I feel like that is part of one thing that like I was like, well, this is a way to spend time that is connected to what I want to do. I did a lot of student films. I did sometimes really good and sometimes really bad. You know, and like you don't want anybody to see your growth work on TV. You know, you want it to be in hopefully buried films, or hopefully seen films. Yeah. And I spent my time doing live improv comedy because I love doing it, you know, with not an idea of like, okay, I'm doing this show, so if I do like 30 shows, then I can get on TV. It wasn't even about that. It was just like, oh, I just want to move in the space. I just want to see what's out there.
Yeah.
And sorry, what was the question?
No, that was great. You answered already.
Okay, good.
And yeah. And there is so much out there. So I think it's great that you did that for yourself.
Yeah. And by the time, I was, an agent did want me, I went back and I was in plays, and I had made connections through Upright Citizens Brigade, and some of the people who were my teachers then became showrunners of shows.
Oh, wow.
And so one of my first jobs was one of my former teachers being like, hey, there is a part that is right for you. It's a couple lines. Are you interested? And I was like, oh, I would love to audition.
Yeah.
Goes, no, you would just have the part, And I was like,
Wow.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so I was able to go back to the same agency with a credit now.
Yeah.
And like a couple, and that whole experience was just so different. That second time around, they're like, wow, I can't believe anybody hasn't taken you up yet. We're so excited to grab you first, because then they saw me as somebody who was a moneymaker.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's so crass, but it is, I think it is truthful.
Yeah, it's good to know the reality, because it's not always talked about, but it's important to know, especially for those who do want to get into that industry.
Yeah.
So let's say you're getting ready for auditions. How do you even begin to shape a character and turn words on a page into something that you can embody?
Oh, great question. Everything is going to be different too. I think commercial auditions are going to be very different from TV and film under the umbrella of theatrical auditions.
Right.
I think if I'll speak to each separately too, because I do think that commercial auditions are going to be a big part of many people's paths to TV and film. And I think. For a small part where that your part serves some bigger thing, and we're not auditioning for Flo from Progressive, we're auditioning for one person who is eating a taco.
Yeah.
I think it's important to just remember that you are fun and great, and bring. Try to find that authenticity outside of the nervousness of oh my gosh, if I book this job, then I could have the money to pay the rent, and that would be great. There is a lot that is gonna be in your mind and in your heart to get in the way, and just kind of sift through that and just remember that you are fun and great. You are already ready for these things that where they need somebody to serve a small purpose. I think there's not small parts, but I think the prep is different,
Yeah.
And then if you get something that's you are auditioning for a short film where you are carrying it, you're auditioning for a guest star in a TV show. Say you're with an agent and you get an email in your inbox, and the breakdown is the description of the character. Okay. And you're going to get things that are maybe similar to you, but not exactly you. And that can really trip one up, too. So what I do to really meet that person, if I get a breakdown that's she's a high-powered lawyer that doesn't take no for an answer, and she's beautiful and sexy and mean, but also likable. You will get these breakdowns that will trip you up. And so a big trap that even in my career now, I've been through a lot of things, I can still fall into that trap. I'm okay, I have to be a high-powered, sexy lawyer, and you're going to have to do it on days where you don't really, oh, I have allergies. Yeah. But to remember that the people who are watching these tapes and the people who want to tell their stories are not looking for the best high-powered, sexy lawyer. They're looking for a person with life, and that person could be actually just you. Yeah. So to remember that it's, instead of being okay, I have to be this person, and I ask myself, what would my life be like, and what would I be like if I were a lawyer? If I had that ambition, I bring up the adjective sexy because I do feel like that does appear in breakdowns. Impossible to play. Yeah. No one who feels appealing is going around being I'm so sexy. But you will see it, especially as a woman. Right? Yeah. You'll see that breakdown a lot for characters that identify as female, and the way past it is just throw these words out that are traps, and then think about ooh, if I were a lawyer, I would be kind of tired, I think.
Yeah.
Because I'd be studying a lot, but I know how I feel when I feel accomplished at something, and I do, I can get a little cocky, and so I find that way through how it's always true to me.
Yeah.
That was a long answer.
That was a great answer. Yeah, it's interesting because, it's not just what's on the paper, but you're building layers and you're taking, I assume, your own experiences maybe and putting it into that character.
To remember that putting yourself on tape or going into a room, they still happen, to audition for a character is not just you serving the role, it's a collaboration.
Yeah.
They're looking for somebody who's going to give them something that will surprise them.
Yeah.
And that could be you, even if you feel like you don't match the breakdown exactly. And there's a lot of fun anecdotes in the industry too. I don't know if they're true or not, so I'm not going to mention real shows, but some actor goes in for a high-powered lawyer, but he's just like, man, I cannot connect to that. And so he goes in with a greasy T-shirt, but he's so himself. They're like, well, we got to change the character now,
Yeah.
That doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
But there are enough anecdotes that I think show that at the end of the day, what people are looking for is a vivacity and authenticity.
Yeah.
Over who is going to really nail just this description.
Right. Yeah, that's so interesting. You have to go for it.
Yeah.
And put your all into it.
I think so. And to know that you're already enough,
Yeah.
We can build on our skills, we can build on how to access our emotions, we can build on that. But you don't have to change your personality.
Right.
Because you can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a futile game to just be like,
right.
now I'm evil. And because evil people don't think about themselves as evil either. So if you're always going through yourself, then I feel like that's going to be the most interesting performance you can give.
Yeah. Wow, I love that. Great. All right. I want to bring up an interview that you did in 2017. It was with Los Angeles Times High School Insider. And do you remember?
No. The short answer is no.
It was a bit ago. But in this interview, the interviewer mentioned how diversity was a hot topic at that time. And you expressed how, as an Asian American woman, you were often put up for roles such as the ethnic best friend or just generally for supporting roles. So I'm curious, in these past 8 years, has that reality changed for you? Or are you being put up for more diverse roles, or do you feel like maybe the industry is in the same place as it was in that regard?
That's a really great question. It really is because, I only get to see it from my lens, and I feel like I've only done more projects and I've only made more connections since then too. So it's like, oh, is this just my experience where I'm just like, oh, people just really see me as me now? Are other people having this experience? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's been a good thing that there has been an awareness to it, because I think it's been taken for granted for so long, and it was taken for granted by me as a young actor, where it's like, oh, my role is to play ethnic best friends. My role is to support, because there just wasn't a lot of chances otherwise. Because I think in order for there to be a true embracing of diversity is such a loaded word, right? But of just a wide variety of stories, ones that I have not had access to. I think there has to be a lot of trust and a lot of change of power to people who have these stories to tell. It's hard to tell if that has changed or not, but what I can speak to is that I've had a lot more trust in myself as a person that could carry a show. Yeah. Whether or not that is true on the outside, I feel like it's a perspective that serves me, and for people who do feel pigeonholed, to not gaslight anybody and be like, it's not the reality, but it is a perspective that serves me, and I think it serves other people to just be like, yeah, it actually probably could be real, that you're always going to be looked at as a gangster, or you're always going to be looked at as the ethnic best. Those rules are definitely still happening, by the way, and unfortunately with some tone deafness behind it of just like, we're seeing anybody who is, quote, diverse, you know, like, where is the imagination? Where is the specificity in this best friend role?
Yeah.
But like, to know that for people who do feel pigeonholed, like, it's like, oh, you are valuable, and you and like, you are just as worthy as carrying a show, no matter what you're seeing from the outside. And so I think that's how my personal perspective has changed. Yeah,
I think it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. Like, you kind of have to be your biggest fan in this world, it feels like.
I think it's so nice because you know, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's so nice to remember that you have something to offer at all times, you know, because just through repetition, just through the amount of, I mean, people call it rejection, but I mean, when it just happens all the time, it's just kind of the norm, you know.
Yeah.
You're gonna book a very small amount of auditions that you get, extremely small number. You know, people say, oh, I'm on a streak. I've gotten a call back for my last 3 auditions, so now it's different. And I hate to be like, I hope that's true, but it might not be.
Yeah.
But to you know, to weather a constant storm, a constant battering of your ship, is to remember that you are valuable.
Yeah, that's
Be your
amazing.
biggest fan, like you said.
Yeah. So in your own experience, you've both guest starred in shows and you've had recurring roles on shows that you've hung on to from episode 1 to the last episode. And I'm curious, do you take a different approach when you are maybe being put into a show that already has an established tone, environment, cast, compared to a different show where you kind of grow with it?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think that's just an opportunity that's given to you. If you're on the ground floor, if you're starting a show, you get to be more contributive, you know, just by default. Nobody knows what it's going to be until it's shot. And so and they cast you because they like your tone. So you are setting the tone. And that was true of Andy Mack. That was true of, I mean, even though I'm a guest star on Shrinking, that's true of Shrinking too, because I got to be in the pilot. So I mean, I can't speak to what the showrunners were thinking or the casting office was thinking, but when I got the role, nothing else had been established. So I'm like, oh, I don't see this person a different way than what I'm bringing.
Right.
So it's not something that I prepared for, but it's something that happens to you, I think, you know.
Okay.
So I guess the short answer is no, I don't, you know. I mean, even if you get cast in a show that's so established, I'm also recurring on NCIS.
Right.
This show has been around for over 20 years. They know what they're doing. But when I auditioned, I couldn't think about it as like, oh, it's a serious show about, you know, solving crimes, and like, because I wouldn't be able to find myself in that. But, you know, having the trust that if they've cast you, they want that.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want you to, you've already fit the tone of the show.
Right. That makes sense. Okay, well, speaking of Andy Mack too, I'd like to ask you a little bit about that.
Yay!
Yay!
About Andy Mack. Yeah.
Yay! Okay. For anyone that doesn't know, this is a show. It was a Disney Channel original series, ran for 3 seasons from 2017 to 2019, and it followed the life of Andy Mack, who was played by Peyton Elizabeth Lee, and Lilan played Bex, her older sister, and the show follows their life after the big reveal that Bex is her mother, not her sister. Crazy beginning to a show. I watched that show growing up, and and I feel like a lot of the shows build up to like a big twist, but this big twist was in the first episode, and had me hooked when I was a kid, had me hooked again while I was rewatching it recently.
Wow.
And so I'm curious, what was it like for you and maybe the other cast when you learned about the storyline?
Oh, wow. So I got to learn about it in the audition. You know, they put in the breakdown just to hide a little bit. It's like, oh, she's playing her older sister, but then reading the sides, the material that I went to audition with were, I'm not your sister, I'm your mother. You know, so there's no way to hide that. And it's so nice when you can kind of tap into something a little bit more beyond you. You know, you've got a feeling about something, and then that feeling turns out to be right, where I'm like, oh, this is a special show.
Yeah.
This is real. And I felt really optimistic about it. Not in the sense where, like, I got this, you know, but I felt different about this even from just reading the material and about how I connected to it, then I was feeling about different things that I was auditioning for. So I think it had that magic even before we shot the pilot. There was something about this show that I knew that was going to be just really awesome.
Yeah. How did you go about shaping Bex's character, who was a free spirit and was used to being a sister, kind of away from the family, and had to step into this mother role?
Yeah, I mean, I think a part of it too is sometimes an actor has to remind themselves, like, oh, it is me that is in the role. And sometimes it just happens to you, where I wasn't kind of hung up on like, well, I haven't had these circumstances where I had a daughter and then left her with my mom and then disappeared for 13 years.
Right.
But something about the dialogue, it was so well written, and it was so, it felt like it was already in my voice,
Wow.
where she was she was a little self-deprecating. She used humor to kind of move through stuff. She was like friendly and flawed, and I was like, I get this person. I get her, so that was a really lovely gift where it's like, I didn't have to be like, okay, how can I put myself into it? It spoke to me. It was like, oh, I get you. I am her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also it made history as Disney Channel's first gay storyline.
Yes.
Yeah, how did you, I mean, you kind of mentioned that you knew it was special already, but did you know that you guys were going to make history with it?
No. That was, I mean, what a ride to be on, to see things unfolding in real time. And it was so special to so many of us for, I believe all of the kids, it was their first like series regular, like continuous series regular. I could be wrong about that. And it was my first series regular. It wasn't Laura and Tom, my mom's first series, but so we were all kind of in this like special world together. We're like, can you believe?
Yeah.
It just, I think it was so electric for all of us because we got to start on the ground floor together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And grow with it.
Yeah.
Literally for especially the younger ones, I feel.
Oh my gosh, I saw them grow from kids to older kids, and now they're grown-ups.
Yeah.
Adults. In my mind, they're always like a kid turned into you're a grown-up.
As the cast, you guys also kind of stepped into the public eye. What was that like, kind of becoming a public figure?
It was really wild.
Yeah.
Like, to speak really honestly to it, it was really like surprising and I'm not going to say disorienting, but I wonder if it's different for a kid where it's just like, oh, you're just growing up in general, and so growing up kind of is growing this way.
Right.
But for like being a grown-up and having lived a very different life before that too, it was like a very new experience to feel like very much in the public eye, like balancing responsibility with like just living life. I think it's I can't say that I took it for granted. It really caught me by surprise, but I didn't even know I was being surprised because it happened so gradually.
How about even now? How do you maybe try to stay grounded when a lot of your work and your personal life is public?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good that I just happen to be an oversharer by nature. I'm just like, what do you want to? Sure, why not? I'm here. But I think it really does go back to the community, where it's like I've got these great friends. I've got a solid partner. I'm so lucky in so many ways. And I got to have a kid last year.
Oh, congrats.
I guess 2 years ago. Wow, time is fast. But like, I think that was kind of an awesome gift because your role has to change. And so it's just like, oh, I'm not just an actor. I'm a mom. I'm like, I'm a friend. I'm a spouse. Like, and remembering that this part of my life, the public part of my life, is a slice in a pie chart of my whole thing, has been really, really helpful for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're very active on social media too.
Yeah.
How do you decide what parts of your life you want to share?
That's a good question. I think I still navigate through that too. Like things are like so. Like social media grew at a time where I was growing my career. So when Instagram first came out, it was really just like a message board for friends that were pictures, you know? So it was just like, hello, remember when we all were at this karaoke bar, everybody? You know, like, and then it did have to change when I got on Andy Mac, because my only peers, the only people who were looking at my social media were buddies who got inside jokes, who like we all like were familiar with content, and now and now it's just like, oh, it is everything I put out is a representation of myself, but also I'm very human too. So some days I'm very passionate about certain things, and some days I'm like, oh, but I am a public figure, you know, and I think we're all kind of finding our way through that, and I think. I think it's too limited to say that no perspective is wrong. Like no way to go about it is wrong. But
right.
But the truth is that like, yeah, I am really, like, as you know from my social media, I'm really politically active. And I know from my friends who are also in entertainment, who have a platform, who are politically active, something that gets talked about is like, oh, I wish more people were talking about this. I wish more people were bringing attention to this. Yeah. But the truth is that just like, it's a lot, you know, and a lot's going on in our world, and a lot is, as a public figure, a lot is expected of you by people you don't know.
Yeah, right.
So I think it's fine for, and especially for younger actors too. I have a big heart for younger actors who are living right now in a world of entertainment and social media.
Yeah.
Because how do you even know who you are? How do you even know what you believe in? I mean, I have been politically active since I was like 17 years old, you know, and I was going door to door for human rights, you know, for the Human Rights Campaign, right. An LGBT organization. And I've evolved so much too. I'm learning to have grace for myself, being like, hey, I can't help but care, and I can't help but share. Yeah. And I'm not going to put that on anybody else. I'm not going to put that responsibility on anybody else. Everybody gets the right to not have a social media presence. Yeah. And to learn and to grow and to be wrong. Yeah.
To bring it back to Andy Mac again, one of my favorite things about that show and just TV shows in general is seeing the bond that a cast builds. And you all seem very close. How do those off-screen relationships influence the on-screen dynamics?
Oh, it's so awesome when you get to be a part of an ensemble that are friends off-screen, because the trust is so much there. I mean, you can see a lot of shows where the skill is so tight, where like actors don't need trust from each other. And depending on the content, sometimes like you really don't need it. Sometimes you need to have some tension, but not for a show like Andy Mac. Of course, you know, it's a group of friends. It's a family, you know. Right. So to be able to, like, you can try things. You can really elevate it too. Like Peyton and I could come to directors and be like, hey, like, we really want this idea of like, can we try it like this, you know? And you become part of the creative flow. Gosh, it's such an awesome experience. I hope, like, for people who pursue that career, they get to have these experiences, because then you really, really can create some cool stuff. Yeah. And you guys had a reunion recently. Yeah, to raise money for the victims of those fires. Yeah, how did that come about, and how did it feel to all come together again? Oh, it was so cool. It was fun because it was on our own, too. Yeah. You know, Peyton had contacted me, and Luke, who played TJ, had contacted her, or they had been working on it together, and they were like, what do you think of this? Yeah. And there was so much excitement from jump, you know, which I think goes to show that, like, oh, I think we needed it as much as, you know, people could have needed the support. Fans might want to see that, might have wanted to see that. You know, it is wild to spend 3 years of your life with this group of people, and then, you know, but that's just how the industry goes, and then you're on to different projects, and you move to different countries or cities or whatever. So to be back in that was so nourishing. Yeah. And you know, and it reminds you, it's like, oh yeah, we are all friends. We should hang out, you know. So oh, what a great experience.
I tuned in, and you guys, it was like nothing, like no time had passed. Like you guys were back in a family and friends again. It was lovely.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you saw each, like us, like, you know, throwing shade on each other, and you know, going back into those rhythms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if that was surprising to us, but it did feel like, oh, the click is back. We are here. We are just like we're on set again.
Yeah. You guys were dedicated to, what was your $20,000, right?
We raised $20,000.
Yeah, and you guys were dedicated, like giving away like drawings or something.
It took forever to do that. If there, oh gosh, there is one of these drawings that did not get sent out. I don't know who's listening to this podcast, but the address bounced back. If you are a person that donated over $300 and you did not get your drawing, I don't know, just comment on one of my like things.
Yeah.
Give me your, like, DM me your right address. I gotta get this to you. It's just sitting in my closet.
Oh.
But yeah, it was what was so great about that is that, like, because we weren't going through some type of like orchestrated company or and it wasn't like Disney that was putting on, which would have been fine or whatever, but we were just like, oh, let's just do it ourselves. There was like a as you could tell, there was a realness, you know, to just getting back together, and there was a lot of agency too. It's just like, oh, we could just do this, you know. And so those drawings that we did like had so much love. We had to get back together like a couple weeks later when we all were free again, and like we're all just sitting around just making drawings of
doing arts and crafts together.
Doing arts and crafts, yeah, essentially.
Yeah, that's great. Well, hope to see more from all of you guys in the future as well. I want to transition to another show that you've been on, Murderville. I've never seen a show that was kind of half scripted, half improvised like that. And for anybody that hasn't watched it, it's on Netflix, and basically celebrity guests are brought into these fictional crime scene scenarios as detective trainees, and they have to figure out who the murderer is. You play Amber King, who is the medical examiner, the forensics expert. Yeah. What was it like being that character in a situation where there are kind of unexpected scenarios that could arise, where you have to improvise? Like, do you feel like you have to know the character better to stay true to them in those unexpected situations?
Well, I think in that case, my improv background really served me. And that was part of the requirement for auditioning the role. They're like, hey, we want to see you in improv shows. Do you have clips of those to send in to show that you are amenable, to show that you're not just locked into a script? So I didn't have to think about that too much. In fact, like, the show moves so quickly, there's a lot of stuff, like, my notes for the director was like, less, you know, like, you do not have to carry, like, you know, and so it was so easy and fun in that way. It's
kind of fun too as a viewer, because I was trying to figure out like what was scripted and what wasn't, because it was just so natural.
It was so fun. Also working with the cast, the other cast members too. They were so movable too, and the writers were writing on the spot, because our celebrity guest would give something, and so like Hanifa, who plays the chief detective, there's been a murder. She was literally she had an earpiece in and was getting like fed new like stuff because the details had changed, and that's not something you can improvise,
right?
You know, so it was really like an improv. Like in that case, it was improvised. Like the set was in it too. It wasn't just the actors who were improvising. It was like we were making up the script based on what we got. Yeah,
I'm curious, just in general, what draws you to improv specifically?
I've been doing improv comedy since I was 14 years old. You know, there was a comedy sports club at my high school.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't really think about it before, but I really found my voice in there, you know, where I was like, oh, this is something that feels good, you know, where we just play games and make people laugh, and it felt easier than stand-up comedy to me. It felt so accessible. And from that point I was hooked. And so when I graduated from I did it in college as well. And then when I went to Upright Citizens Brigade, it's not really playing games. You're kind of making up a show. You're kind of making up a script on the spot. And it might have through lines. It might not. Often it doesn't. It's made up. It's a lot of chaos. But it just felt like, oh, because the stakes are so low, because no one's expecting a perfect product because they know it's made up. I could live in this world forever. And I did, and I do. It's a really happy place for me.
Yeah. And we're kind of improvising all the time, really.
Yeah, improv is life.
Yeah.
And it only helps my work. It only makes a person more flexible. It only makes me more available.
Yeah.
So I love improv comedy. And there's also dramatic improv too. But for people who've kind of got an interest, but like haven't thought about it yet, I would say take that class, or start your troupe, and like the gifts that come back, because no one sees it. It's not, you're not dedicating a lot of time, and it's free. I mean, the classes aren't free, but like to perform, costs nothing. It's not like making your own film from scratch, which is cool and a great thing, and also should be done. But
Yeah. Is there any way that you prepare, or can you even prepare for an improv performance?
Yes, you can, but it's not about what you're going to see in the show. It's about shaking off the dust and building trust with the team. So there's a lot of like rituals or even superstitions sometimes that an improv group will do before they go on stage, even if they've been performing together for a long time. One of the simplest ones is, you'll have an ensemble of like 5 or 8 people. As we're waiting in the wings, getting ready to be called on stage, like quietly, we'll tap each other on the back and say, "I got your back."
Yeah.
And then we all make sure that we do that with each person. So that way, if somebody tries something that just like sinks, there's a team of people to be like, "No, that was actually a right choice." And actually, this is why, if someone just says something like, "Oh, it's going to be so funny. I am a butler," and he comes out with like a stupid voice playing a butler, and and nobody laughs. If you're with a good team, someone else is going to be like, "Yes, and I am the maid," and support you, and say, "Actually, no, audience, this was the plan all along."
Yeah. It kind of creates a game on stage and with the audience.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, so you've also had some directing experience. Was that something you always wanted to pursue, or just decided to try?
That came later. I think I don't know if my life path would have been different from the start. I think I just saw more female directors. I don't know. Like representation really does matter, and it doesn't have to be in a really conscious way. It's a subconscious thing. But I was just like, the only directors I had ever known about are like Scorsese, Spielberg, and they just seemed like so grand, and so I was just like, okay, well, I like acting, I'll just do that.
Yeah.
But I realized I had this big love of storytelling in this way, and what appeals to me as a director is, like I said, I'm not just a sharer, I'm an oversharer, but directing is such a sharing profession where you're working with so many people, it can almost feels like kind of conducting in some ways a symphony where you can't exist without all these parts, but someone has to figure out where they go and when and who says what at what time and what a certain thing needs at what point. And I just found that I loved that craft, and that just came up so accidentally. It came up from my start of like making short films with my friends because I wanted to act in them.
Yeah.
But then realizing, this is a really gratifying practice too. And so I got some opportunities later to direct like a high budget short. And then that was one aspect that helped me get into the Disney directing program. That led to me directing an episode of television. I directed the Disney show Villains of Valley View.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And that was so awesome.
Wow. Yeah. How was it being on Disney Channel as an actor and then coming back to direct?
I mean, so cool.
Yeah.
There are people, like there is a family element in Disney because there are only a certain amount of shows that go on, and because they're youth-based, Disney does do things where they have events for their talent to meet each other, or they did before the pandemic. I don't know if that's different now.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. It's hard to tell. I haven't been on a Disney show since besides as a director.
Yeah.
So there are familiar faces that that get to be seen, and then you get to meet different ecosystems too. And youth television is its own thing. There are things that are so specific about it, so it does feel a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a good way where it does feel more connected.
How do your experiences with directing and acting interact with one another? Do you feel like they've influenced the way you've approached either one of them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, too. I think, again, too, like, being in a growth mindset is so valuable for creative crafts, because creative crafts are vulnerable, and they're changing, and they're fluid. You know, if there are some skills that I imagine that, or some traits that people learn where it's like, well, if you know how to fix a car, then, you know, well, I mean, I guess cars change too. But, you know, your craft is inside you. You don't leave it, you know? Yeah. And so being able to see things literally from an outside perspective gives you new information, or reminds you of information you've got it, because you cannot escape your own vessel. Yeah. So definitely being in the director's seat has like been informative for my acting, and definitely being an actor, way informative for a director. As an actor, you can tell right away if a director does not have acting experience.
Oh, you know? Interesting.
It's just a different mindset too, because you are one part of something. You know, and I'm sure in the same way I think a camera crew can tell if a director came from the world of camera. Yeah, you know, I didn't come from that world of camera too, so like I was very grateful to my camera team. Like, it was just like, look, we got you. You know, if you want to set up the shot, you can collaborate with us, and we will support you on how to get it. Yeah. But actors we're really vulnerable, and we're really sensitive, and a lot of us are really eager to please. So being able to know that going into, I felt like I was able to cut through a lot of layers, connecting with my actors.
Yeah, that's great. Moving forward, do you feel like you're drawn to any area, directing, improv, acting, or do you feel like this is an industry where you can do it all?
You can, and you can change. I think, you know, I can't not talk about things without keeping the landscape of our industry and the world in mind. And what we've seen is that it's like, oh, nothing is for certain. Nothing's for certain. You know, if I'm speaking about our industry specifically, there's this term of making it, or you've made it. And I just don't think finite terms have a place ever, but especially right now. So I think having an openness to fluidity is so great, to remind somebody of why you got into something in the first place, because nothing is guaranteed. You know, I'm not trying to get down here, but the truth is that it was always a tough industry. I'm here not just because of my hard work, but because of like fortune and luck and breaks, and that changes. But what is And you can't guarantee this for somebody who is so talented and so hardworking and so driven. You just can't. So what makes a beautiful life? You know, it's remembering why you did it. And that might mean shaking it up, you know. So for me, it's not about, oh, I want to be an actor, or I want to do acting, or I want to do directing, or I want to do stuff. It's about, like, how do I express myself, because I can't not. Yeah. And that's going to show up in the form, I hope, you know, in directing sometimes. It's going to show up in the form of the roles that I play. It's going to show up in my live performances that maybe only 8 people will see for some shows, but it will be the best work that I've done all year, or whatever that. But it doesn't matter for me, because my craft, my vessel is alive. Yeah.
Wow. You kind of beat me to my next question. I was going to ask if you had any advice, or just to close this out here, any words of wisdom for maybe some of our students or anybody listening who wants to get into this industry.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see what you mean.
Yeah, that was some great advice already.
I think doubling down on just, we get into this industry because we are a special breed, you know, and like people who get into the world of acting and entertainment and storytelling, directing, filmmaking, usually are not people who love stability, you know, but all of us do love it to a point, because we need it to survive. Yeah. And it's such a I'm glad this is also being recorded for people to see the experience, because you've been watching me this whole time as I'm moving my hands in this flowy motion. It's weather. You know, you are a sailor on a boat that never docks, I feel like, when you decide to pursue a career in this. Yeah. And so it's so important, I think, to get in touch with oneself and be like, you gotta love the sea. Do you love the sea?
Yeah.
Because sometimes the things that will get you through the years are not going to be the big successes and stuff like that. It's going to be, oh my gosh, I felt so alive when I did that improv show with my friends.
Yeah.
I felt so alive when I got to book that pilot where they wrote my character out. So I never made it to TV, which happened to me. It was one of my first jobs, my very first series, quote, series regular. I booked it and I was like, oh my gosh, my life will change forever. I'm going to be on TV, I'm going to be famous, I'm going to buy a house. I quit my barista job. And then after the studio read, they eliminated me from the project.
Wow.
And then I was like, oh no, I have to beg for my coffee job back. I actually didn't. I was too proud, and so I just did odd jobs for a long time. But those things happen. I share that to be like, that's got to happen. And so if you'll get some awesome stuff happen. Like, no one gets to do what we do when you get those wins. Yeah. But when those wins aren't happening, is that journey something that you are amenable to? Yeah. And if that keeps you alive, if your own art keeps you alive, then go for it, because you're not going to want to spend your time any other way. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that was amazing, Lilan. I love all the metaphors.
Sometimes I don't know how to actually put it in terms that aren't images.
It's more digestible that way. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lilan, for being here, for coming on and speaking with me. I enjoyed learning so much about you and the space in general.
Thank you for this, Mia. This was so gratifying for me as well.
Oh, yeah, of course. And thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of Entertainment Unscripted. If you want to hear more episodes, make sure you tune in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and dailybruin.com. And follow Daily Bruin and Daily Bruin Podcasts on Instagram to be the first to know when a new episode premieres. Bye. Bye.